Hello and welcome to Logan Sounds Off, where we talk about books, music, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Logan Kelly. Well, hello and welcome to Logan Sounds Off. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, William?
Sure. I'm a singer-songwriter and producer, and I live in America. I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Um, and yeah, I'm a touring musician, and I'm a huge Beatles fan, and yeah, uh, just all-around music lover, I guess you could say.
So, when did you get into music?
When I was well, I mean, I grew up around music. My uncle lived in Nashville for a long time, and he was a songwriter. And my mom and dad, like, we went to church, and they were in the choir, and all sorts of very musical people in my family. But when I was about 8 years old, I got a guitar for Christmas. And I was watching videos of the Beatles, and I was watching videos of John Mayer, and I said, I want to do that. And so I gave it a go. So I've been playing guitar since I was 8, and writing songs since about the sixth grade, which I guess you're, I don't know, 11 years old then.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you were talking about your uncle there, who was a big influence for you. But other than that, who were your influences? Like you spoke about the Beatles, but were there any others?
Definitely, yeah. I'm a big fan of John Mayer. When I got to high school, I there was this band that was brand new band in my eyes, I guess. Uh, but they called the 1975. They're out of
Oh yeah, yeah,
Manchester.
yeah.
Um, and I love that band, even to this day. So I would say those are my top three, but also, I love Ben Folds. Ben Folds is from where I'm from here in Winston. I love Hall and Oates. I love whenever I started playing guitar when I was in elementary school and middle school, I listened to a lot of classic rock, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, um, and but I mean Billy Joel and Huey Lewis and the News and um, Casey Musgraves. I love Casey Musgraves. Uh, yeah, just a big eclectic mix.
Um, so as you're saying, you're a touring musician, and with your music, how
hmm
did your tour go?
Oh yeah, I just got back from a 5 week tour out west. It was very tiring, as you can expect. Uh, you and I have spoken before a little bit
Yeah.
about things, and I was telling you before, on the West Coast, I mean, on the East Coast of the United States, uh, I mean, touring in general it's an arduous process.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult, um, just because you're never staying in the same place twice for the most part. You're sleeping on a couch or in a hotel or you know on the floor or somewhere
But I
something.
tell you, you won't find touring around Ireland difficult. Literally, from top to bottom, 6 hours.
Yeah,
From
see
across, around 3 hours. Your
that's
phone.
great. That's great. On the East Coast, you can do from here to like Richmond, Virginia, is like 3 hours, 3.5 hours. From Richmond to Washington, D.C. is like 2 hours and some change. And then from D.C. to Philadelphia is like 2 or 3 hours, something like that. And then from Philadelphia to New York, that's like 2 to 3 hours. And then New York to Boston is like 4 hours. So it's all very compact on the East
The
Coast. Where
long drive is what you're telling me.
it's really not that long, is what I'm actually saying. Because on the West Coast, it's like 7 or 8 hours from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and then from San Francisco to Portland, it's like I don't even know. I mean, it's probably 8 hours from Portland to Seattle. I think is not that far, but it's still, And then we went to Montana to visit my aunt and uncle, and we played in Montana, and we drove from Seattle to Montana, which is on paper a 10.5 hour drive, uh, and we knocked that out in a day. It took us about 13 hours with stops and everything. Um, so
Oh,
yeah, it's a but it was very fun. The tour was very fun. I went to a lot of places I'd never been before. I'd never been to most of the places that we played. Most of them I'd never been to, and the people were really nice, and it's really cool to just get out there and travel. So yeah, it's
wow,
good.
13 hours to get from one place to another.
Yep.
In Ireland, there's no such thing as that. It's down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
I can't wait to come to Ireland.
can you tell us actually a little bit about your new album? In coming out, I think this autumn.
Yeah, well, we got some more songs that are gonna come out. The whole record probably won't. But yeah, it's a lot of songs I wrote during quarantine. It's a lot of we put out a record in October of 2020, and it was so a bunch of these songs were written before that album even came out. But also, I'm still working on songs for it. Every day I'm like, yeah, this is the final track listing, and then I'll write another one, and I'll be like, well, that one's really good too. We gotta add that one in. But yeah, I like it. It's a good little record, and I would say most of the subject matter, so to speak, is about doubt, and it's definitely about my job a lot. It's definitely about my job, um, and yeah, it's just kind of I like. I think we talked about this before, but I love records or albums because it's just sort of a time capsule of like the last 2 years of my life. And so when if I live to be 80 years old or whatever, I can look back and say, well, that's what life was like when I was 24 or 25. Um, but yeah,
Um, and then you're saying there with all your different songs throughout quarantine and your track listing with oh, this one, this one, this one. Where do you get your ideas for your songs?
well, everything really, man. I mean, I think that's the beautiful thing about music. And in a lot of ways, I think the Beatles sort of maybe they weren't the original ones to do this, but I think that they definitely popularized songs that weren't really about love. Like they started out with love songs. I want to hold your hand, she loves you, from me to you, all of those 8 days a week. But then they started getting more into, Eleanor Rigby. That's a song about loneliness. Or Taxman. That's about taxes. uh, and so really, I think that I get a lot of inspiration just from everything. So sometimes it's a love song, and sometimes it's I have a new song that's about TikTok and how it's destroying our brains. So
I
it's
can just imagine that. I can just imagine Spotify immediately. William Hinson, TikTok, it's ruining our brains.
exactly.
And then with your music, do you play any instruments?
Yeah, I do. I play guitar, and I play piano, and I play bass a little bit. I play ukulele, um, but yeah, and obviously I sing a bit. But I think with the cool thing about technology is if you can play piano, you can basically play any instrument.
Yeah.
Instrument library. Uh, so yeah, on all the demos, I'll write out a drum part or I'll play a little drum part on the keyboard, and and then we'll go back and track them with real drums or whatever. But yeah,
I've actually got a small question now.
sure.
And this is me just being a bit of a nerd. But this is my final question actually. What software do you like use for your music? Like I use BandLab, Ableton, and
Mm,
Cakewalk. And then
mm.
I've heard about Pro Tools, but that costs money. And then Logic, but that's Apple. So that narrowed that down pretty quickly as I'm a committed Windows user. But
Oh
what do
wow.
you use?
I use Pro Tools. I'm pretty fluent in all of them. We use Ableton for our full band live show for tracks and sequences. Um, but in the studio, I went to school for record production, audio engineering. So when I was in school, the industry, well, and even still, basically, the industry standard, quote unquote, is Pro Tools. But I had been learning Pro Tools. I've been using Pro Tools since I was like 15. Um, and so, but in college, there was a time where a bunch of artists that I like were using Logic. And so I said, well, I'm gonna get a copy of Logic, and I'm gonna use Logic too. So I know how to use Logic. Um, and I mean, they all do the same things for the most part, but there are a few. Um, I will say I'm a big Pro Tools guy. I'm like an evangelist for Pro Tools. I love Pro Tools. I just had a Pro Tools session open just right before you called. Um, but uh, but yeah, I'm a big Pro Tools guy, and there are a couple of things about Pro Tools that the other ones don't have that I use basically every day. So yeah, big Pro
Well,
Tools guy.
that's cool. And my one thing is though that I wanted to ask you was with software, the mini question just added in here. Have you ever tried Cakewalk?
I no, I don't think I have. Do you know what company makes that?
Yes, I do. So basically, BandLab made this thing. It was very simple to be honest, BandLab. Like it's something you can literally do on your phone. It's not like
Mm.
one of those like free kind of apps that you push a load of buttons and it makes a song. But it was a bit simpler than something like Pro Tools. And then they made Cakewalk, and Cakewalk has been going for 30 years. Actually, I think Cakewalk was before BandLab, but it was really well made, and that's what I use basically. But I wanted to just ask, did you ever use it?
I'm gonna look it up right here, Bob. And yeah, by BandLab. I don't think I've ever heard. I don't think I've ever even heard of BandLab before.
To be
Um,
honest, BandLab's like tiny. It's only has like 20,000 users. Um,
Interesting, but it's free though.
Yeah, Cakewalk is free, and then it's really easy to use. And then if you want to, if you like, let's say I don't have a keyboard, I have one of these. You can connect these up,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
you can use them on it,
Oh man,
and they work brilliantly. And then also you can use it like GroovePad, where
uh-huh.
you can put in loads of different samples and then use them.
Oh yeah.
Uh, it's very good though.
I
And
w
rambled on a bit there.
I
But
wish I could
that was my final question there.
I wish I could show you around my studio and so you could see all the keyboards and, and everything. Um, but that's cool, man. That's really cool. I think it's really great that you're especially this early on. If I became uh proficient or adept at a DAW. I mean, I was working in so when I was in grade 7, probably grade 6 maybe. I started using a program called Audacity.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've got Audacity. Yeah.
yeah. So I started using that, and then I wanted a MacBook so bad. I wanted a MacBook so bad, and so in the ninth grade, I was able to get a MacBook, and so I started using GarageBand, and that was like a godsend. I felt it was like amazing. There were software
Yeah.
instruments. It was amazing.
GarageBand's pretty good now.
Yeah, and so that was the other thing about Logic is that I was able to, sort of bridge my experience working in GarageBand because it's basically just GarageBand like on steroids. Um, but yeah, but I think it's really cool that you're able to use a DAW so young. It's so great.
Thanks, William. So that basically wraps it up. But thank you for coming on to talk to me. It's been really fun.
Of course, man. Anytime. Let me know. Let me know anytime you want to talk. We'll have a chat.
See you, William.
See you,
Bye.
man. Bye.
Thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Logan Sounds Off. And if you have any questions or requests, you can email logansoundsoff@gmail.com.